Hello and welcome back to Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants. My name is Kayla and today I'm going to be doing another tea talk. So the topic of this episode of Tea Talks is how I got the name Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants. So I'm also just going to do like a brief history of Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants. So if you're not aware, Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants started as an Instagram account. I started it on September 20th, 2016, and the reason I began it was because I was working on a school project that was, we had to give a brief speech on, or like not necessarily a speech, but a presentation that used a visual aid on comparing and contrasting life in the 1700s between the England and the United States. So like Revolutionary War era, what was life like in England and what was it like in the US? And most of the prompts that were suggested were about government or political things, because it was for history, and I was like, Oh, and if you don't know, I was homeschooled, but I attended a homeschool program called Classical Conversations, and so you meet one day a week, and so like you have classmates and everything. So I wasn't just doing this like at my home. This was in a classroom setting, but it wasn't in a public school classroom setting. So I was homeschooled, so my mom was still in charge of my education, and so she let me change the topic of what I wanted to do. So I decided that I was going to do mine on comparing and contrasting what tea was like in England and in America in the 1700s. And so I began researching that. And as a lover of tea, as I like sat down at my computer desk to start researching, I sat down with a cup of tea. And it wasn't a mug of tea though. It was, I have this vintage English teacup made of fine bow china that it has like these red flowers on it and these like gold accents. And it was that teacup, and I sat down with that cup of tea and I just thought it was so pretty, so I decided to take a picture of it, and I posted it on my personal Instagram account. And I was like, you know what would be really cool? If someone like took pictures of teacups and posted that on Instagram, because they're really pretty. And then I was like, I should do that. But I knew like you can't just do that without a name, and I didn't want to repurpose my personal Instagram, so I wanted to create this account on Instagram that talked about tea. And I thought that this was a like unique idea at the time, not knowing that hundreds of other people do this. Naive little 16-year-old me. Anyway, so I sat down and was working on researching, and I was like, what should I use for a name for this? And as I was researching, I found that tea has a much more extensive history in England than it does in America, obviously because England is a lot older than America. I knew that tea came from China originally and not England, and so I realized that in order to like sort of compare and contrast what tea was like in England to what it was like in America, I sort of had to find a history of tea. So as I was researching the history of tea, I discovered like how tea was introduced to England, and commercially, tea was introduced prior to what I'm going to talk about, but how tea sort of became a custom in England is the English king married a Portuguese princess, so and she became Queen Catherine of Braganza. And when she moved over to England, she wanted to bring her tea from her country that she loved. So she brought tea to England with her. And after she did that, she sort of introduced it to her husband and to the English court, and it sort of became a very like pompous thing to drink. After all, it was introduced to England by a monarch, and it was still super expensive. Being able to export it from China all the way to England or Portugal was just expensive. And so it was very expensive because it was introduced by a monarch. Even if someone of a lower class wanted to buy it and could afford it, they really like socially weren't allowed to. So tea became this very like pompous thing in England. So tea in England was a very kingly drink, and it wasn't really something that commoners or peasants were allowed to enjoy. But as time went on, it, we exported more and more of it. We got better shipping routes and trade routes, and we were able to bring the cost down. And so all of a sudden, poor people could afford it, and they were able to start buying it. And in England, it really just became a drink that people really loved, particularly with, you know, Earl Grey. He was a English ambassador to China, and he made his tea blend with black tea and bergamot. And that's sort of how, like, tea just really became a very special drink to the English, and it was something that everyone enjoyed. So that's how I came up with the name Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants, because tea is for everybody now. I picked out the name Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants because tea is for everybody, and I thought that everyone should be allowed to enjoy tea like we do now. So after I had my name for my Instagram, I launched it with a photo of actually that teacup that I had when I was... I should go grab it. I'm gonna do that. I will be right back. So I'm back, and this is the teacup that started it all. So as you can see, it has this very nice like auburn red leaves, I guess? I don't know. Leaves with gold accents, and it's so pretty. And I know I called it vintage earlier. It says 1850 at the bottom. I think that other countries would laugh at me calling something from 1850 vintage. But anyway, love this teacup. It started it all. I'm gonna swap her out for my one that actually has tea in it. So anyway, after I started my posts on Instagram, I wasn't really gaining a lot of traction, but something that my brother had always wanted to do and had like sort of talked to me about previously was starting a YouTube channel about baking. And I wanted Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants to not be solely about tea. I had always loved baking, and so I wanted to create a sort of a like combination thing, because like what goes better together than a nice cup of tea and like a fun treat, right? So I thought that Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants would be a place of like tea and baking and recipes and more tea. And after I sort of started doing that a little bit more on my Instagram, my brother thought that we should start a YouTube channel together. So with my brother's help, I started the Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants YouTube channel, and that was December 16th? 17th? I'm gonna look it up. 1 second. Let's see, what was the last video I was watching on YouTube? Oh, it was Tea Leaf Project's Weekly Tea Basket. Yeah, so there's my first video. Oh, it was the 13th. I was way off. December 13th, 2016. But I started a YouTube channel, and I posted 2 videos, and then I didn't post again for 8 months. Kind of sounds like me. Happens a lot. Anyway, but then in the fall, I decided that I wanted to pick it back up again. And that's when I started my fall pairing series, and I had so much fun doing that. And then I kept continually posting, and then I stopped posting, and then I kept continually posting, and yeah. That is Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants. It's been kind of a, not like a bumpy road as in like it's been hard. It has been hard to keep posting videos continually and everything like that. But it's more just been, I'm flaky. So yeah, it's been so much fun though. I'm approaching 500 followers on Instagram, and I'm gonna do a video, yeah. Well, I probably will do a video, but I'm gonna do a giveaway when I hit 500 followers. And I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited about everything on my Patreon. It's launched right now, but I'm getting ready to do another video about that, talking about what will come in the tea set boxes, and I'm really excited about that because I have a lot of the stuff, and so stay tuned because it's going to be really cool and you'll definitely want to be a part of it. Trust me. But that's all for this super long episode of Tea for Kings, Tea for Peasants. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe down below. And that's all for now, so as always, happy sipping.